Howdy, Jordan Sheridan live once again. Special treat. Gonna have Lee Camp on, so let me set that up for you. You will see me setting it up live. So give me 1 second. Doo. Hey there. Give me 1 second. This is not 60 minutes, so I have to do it live. NDI. There we go. All right, sweet. So press the like button. Let's get this out to more people. And I am delighted to be joined by Lee Camp of Redacted tonight. Lee, how are you doing in these trying times?
Hey Jordan, good to see you. I'm hanging in there. Yeah, it's sucks to not be touring, not be actually out there beating people anymore for now, but still doing the shows and everything. So
Good. And I wanted to have you on because I know that you've done plenty on the election scams all over the country for the last, it's been going on for a long time, but specifically the last couple of years. I don't particularly think the results of this election are as important as the neoliberal class would like us to think, but we just saw in Kentucky with the polling being, I think it was like one polling place for 600,000 people. I think that's just a taste of what's to come. So I wanted to start there. Tell me, what have you been reporting and looking into recently? Because you and some others say if you think what's going on in these primaries is bad, wait till November.
yeah, this really is just a test run to see how well it's working, and it looks like it's working swimmingly. Here's the thing: is I'm trying to be very careful when I talk about election fraud, vote rigging, all this stuff. It is done by both parties. What we're talking about right here with the closing of the polling places in the general election or in Kentucky is being done by the Republican Party. So I'm not saying it's only Republicans that rig these things. And I think that it's probably why the Democrats don't bring it up more, is because they rigged their own primary against Bernie Sanders, and then they don't want to talk about it. But yeah, this was a test run in Kentucky, like you said, one polling place for hundreds of thousands of people. Georgia, what was it, a week or two ago, just a complete shit show and designed to be that way. The fewer people that vote, the better it is for Republicans in this case. And, Greg Palast has done some of the best reporting on this. 17 million people around the country, that's 1 out of every 12 voters, has been purged just by the kind of faux residency requirements purge technique, which basically sends a postcard to someone and says, if you don't return this, we're purging you. And millions of people don't read the postcard, think it's a hoax, don't think it matters, whatever, and don't return it. So you have 17 million people already purged going into November, and that's not even the entirety, but that's 1 out of every 12 voters. And so, like I said, the Democrats do their own form of election fraud to stop Bernie Sanders. But this technique right now is being done by Republicans.
And what's interesting to me is with the reckoning we've been seeing with Black Lives Matter, we did see an increase in Kentucky yesterday in terms of voter turnout. You would expect possibly more African Americans to vote, maybe skip the top line presidential ballot, but congressional, Senate. And we know that there's a special place in voter purge hell for black people. George W. Bush, besides the Supreme Court, should thank the purge of black people in Florida in 2000. Do you expect more of that suppression and purging in communities that Hillary Clinton lost, looking at Milwaukee, Detroit, and other communities predominantly black?
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of what this purging is. They've been ever since it goes back to the Bush years. They would make sure to put fewer polling places in urban areas where it tends to be more minorities voting. They continue that technique. Another one that especially hits minorities is Greg Palast has also covered the interstate cross-check, which compares two names from different states and says you're trying to vote twice, despite the fact that it's just that someone has a similar name as someone else, James Walker or something. And, oh, there's two James Walkers, therefore we'll purge both of them. And why does that end up hitting, black and brown people? Well, they tend to have more common last names, and same with Asian Americans, same with Latino Americans. So it's an interesting technique, a new one that has been tried the last couple of times. And they did, remember Trump did try to make that a national thing for a moment with Chris Kobach as his election czar or whatever he called him. And it didn't quite work out because enough states said, we're not going to give you our voter information. But it has worked in certain states, and I think they'll continue to try that. So, and then the residency requirements also hits people of color and especially younger people because they tend to move more. They tend to not have a house that, it's easier to get like a postcard and return it. So even that is designed to especially hit people who are not white. I don't know why that is. The Republicans are trying so hard to stop non-white people from voting. I'm not really sure what that is, but they seem to be fighting very hard on that front.
And I feel like college campuses is the new threshold here. We saw during the primary, besides the all-out assault on Bernie from the media, particularly between South Carolina and Super Tuesday. I mean, it was like a coordinated super PAC for Joe Biden. But I mean, in Texas, the lines were crazy at colleges. Same thing in Michigan,
Yep.
California as well. And, young people kind of wait, often till the last minute. But obviously, it could have made a difference, particularly in Texas, if more of these college students were able to vote. We're seeing a lot of this over recent years at college campuses where, I mean, young people are being left to wait 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. I don't think that's just a Republican thing. I think that's happening in Democratic primaries as well.
Right, and like I said, I think this is why you don't hear more fury from the Democrats on a lot of these fronts, is because they're doing it in the primary. So Bernie Sanders in Texas would have won by, probably a substantial margin, if not for closing so many polling places, especially in Latino-heavy areas, Latinx areas. And so they just closed hundreds of polling places. In California, they also completely redid their system within months of the election, and people didn't understand it. They had trouble getting poll workers and all this stuff designed to really slow everything down, make it very hard to vote. And then the poll workers were actually told in trainings, and they used the same trick on Bernie in 2016. And it's absolutely infuriating that he didn't stand up more angrily and say, this isn't going to happen to me again. But they trained poll workers to give out provisional ballots and tell people that provisional ballots, which are pretty damn close to being placebo ballots, here's a pretend vote, and we'll let you think that you actually voted. They were told to give them to as many people as possible. And there was some video I played on my show, Redacted Tonight, that the video of someone arguing with a poll worker and saying, you're telling me that a provisional ballot is the same as a regular ballot? And she goes, yeah, absolutely. And he goes, you're lying to us. And he's right. They are lying to you. Provisional ballots are far less likely to be counted. Even when they are counted, it's a month later or 2 weeks later when no one's paying attention. The race has already been called. So it's all these tactics. I mean, they're really honing them to an art.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts? I mean, bottom line, I don't think we need to get into Trump that much, but Biden, it's possible he could be comatose and still win at this point. You either have a continuation of what we've been seeing from Trump or a return to the Obama neoliberal order. I don't think if Biden gets elected, we're going to see rampant change and reform, not just in police brutality, but just basic economic brutality against black and brown people and in indigenous people. I think we're going to see basically return to corruption behind closed doors rather than in your face. I assume you're not optimistic either way.
Yeah, but before as I rev up my engine to move into the Biden trashing, I will put this caveat at the beginning. I understand why people want to get rid of Trump. I understand that the bully pulpit of the presidency is very powerful, and putting forward straightforward racism like that has an impact. It does fire up racists, and his executive orders have an impact on certain types of people. And I understand why people are furious at him for all of those things, and his white supremacy, I would say dog whistles, but I think we've moved past dog whistles. However, like you said, on so many issues, Biden and Trump are really, competing with each other to see who can be more imperialist, who can be, really crush the environment and crush oppressed people more. Biden, if you really want to talk about racist policies having an impact on non-white people in this country, Biden has had a far greater impact than Trump by putting forward the crime bill in the 90s and helping Clinton get it through. And that doubled our prison population to over 2 million, largest prison state in the world right now. So Biden has actually had a far greater impact on the race front than Trump has so far. But and then if you look at our imperialist wars, our endless wars overseas, where Trump gets the most hatred from the Democratic establishment and from the liberal aligned media, is when he's whether it's for his own ego or whatever the reasons, he's trying to actually decrease our militarism. When he says he's taking the troops out of Syria, when he says he's taking the troops out of Afghanistan, when he says he might risk peace with North Korea, all those things get more fury and just hair on fire response from the liberal aligned media and the Democratic establishment, then bombing, then killing, then supporting the genocide in Yemen. So it's like Biden is actually way out imperializing Donald Trump, but that and that's part of the reason that they want to get him out so much, is he's not acting as a good CEO of America Inc. But I also am not saying I don't understand why so many people are so hateful or so, I don't know, upset about Donald Trump in office as well, because the bully pulpit does have a lot of power.
Yeah. By the way, you got some love from the audience. Swirly Swirl, $5. Lee started me on my journey to the left after I left for college. Thanks, Lee. So there you go. One thing I think is specifically about Biden, I mean, I'm not trying to mock him, but it is what it is. He's obviously not all there. I've been saying that for a year. So more so with Biden, you really would have this deep state shadow government running things. I mean, you could see Biden getting in there and a very powerful role for whoever the vice president is, very powerful roles for Wall Street, basically handing him what they want and him signing it, because he's never really expressed like a grand vision when he was pretty senile, when he was pretty lucid. So I would expect from the Jamie Dimons to the Raytheons to the fossil fuel companies, pretty much a return to form, whereas Trump has been doing their bidding also, but at least is a little bit more unpredictable and ruffled some feathers in the corporate elite.
Yeah. So if you go back to Obama, who was not senile, we saw through WikiLeaks, through emails revealed by WikiLeaks, that Obama's first cabinet was largely picked by Citigroup. The head of Citigroup or heads sent an email saying, here's what's acceptable to us. And something like 80-90% of those choices are what his cabinet was made up of, including Treasury Secretary. So it shows that Citibank is deciding these cabinet members, and that's with the president that had a brain. So now you're right. You put in the kind of empty shell of a human being. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw what was that the store where you could make your own teddy bears. And you would go in and you'd pick a skin, and all the bear skins would be hanging on the wall. You'd put your stuffing in the bear skin. Biden is one of the bearskins. It's just an empty flesh hanging on a wall. And now you're right. If he gets into the office, they'll get to put in all their people and decide what it is they want from this corporate-run government. And that's why, despite the fact that I won a legitimate election, and I'm one of the things that Redacted Tonight is known for is talking about election fraud, I think that far more is achieved in our nation outside of just elections. Voting is like wiping your ass. It's something you should do, but you don't need to high five each other for it. You should just do it. Just do it. And then if you really want to create change, that has to come outside of the voting booth, because our system is nearly completely owned and operated by powerful interests. And the real change comes on the streets. I mean, we've seen that with this police reform, if people can keep it up. The police reform that people have fought for decades happens in the span of a few weeks, or at least is moving towards happening, because people were on the streets and getting angry and all of a sudden showing the power of the people in a new way rather than just electing the next corporate candidate.
And let's talk about that, because to me, I've been covering the protests, not going to be the white guy telling protesters what to do, but I think it is kind of missing that economic component. Of course, first and foremost, like, stop killing us. That comes first. But Jimmy says it well. I mean, if you got together a real boycott of Amazon and the corporate elite for a week, you'd see reform real quick, because the politicians answer to Amazon. And all these companies now coming out with their Black Lives Matter on their windows. I saw Chase Bank had it, all that.
Yeah,
I mean, basically, you know how this works. They're basically just waiting it out till the protesters end. That's what they did at Standing Rock. Waiting it out till it dissipates, and then it's back to business. What do you think in terms of defunding the police? Because, I mean, some of these numbers we're learning. New York, $6 billion for their police department. LA, I think it's 3.5. I mean, it really is just an extension of the defense contractors.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good point, and that's why I was actually happy to see that the protests had moved beyond the kind of nebulous idea of just Black Lives Matter into something that at least has some actual, laws that can be put into place, such as defunding police, or laws that can be taken away, such as the amount of money that they're getting. So defund the police, I think, is a good step in the right direction. I think it needs to move farther than that. We need far fewer police. We do not need guys with guns on every corner inserting themselves into everyone's lives, usually not white people, and just creating havoc. So I think it does need to move farther than that, but I think that defunding the police is a good step in the right direction, and I'm glad to see them take that economic component as part of what this anger is. But you're right; it has to continue. They know how you're also right that corporations know how to wait these things out. This is a tried and true method where you act like you support it. You do a little little window dressing. You paint Black Lives Matter on the road. You say, "Look how much we care," and then you hope that people get tired and go home. So yeah, it will depend on how much the energy can be maintained.
And also, one thing we're seeing, because you've done a lot of stuff on all these wars for oil, things like that. I mean, just people didn't notice that they were using tear gas, grenades, all these things at Standing Rock. They're starting to notice that, I mean, the police in this country, essentially, if you throw a water bottle at them, you could get chemical weapons shot in your face. One person in Ohio died. I think she had a respiratory issue. And what's really, to me, watching this, the police have really been revealed as protecting property and capitalism first over protesters. I mean, I saw it at Standing Rock. You literally had police protecting an oil rig. But what does it say to you that all of these protests, they seem to be standing there to really protect, and the first priority has been property, institutions, gentrified neighborhoods, rather than hearing the protesters out?
Yeah, I love that example, of the pipeline, of the militarized police defending a pipeline over the people they've sworn to protect. I always wondered, does it matter that it was an oil pipeline, or could it be any corporate object? Like, if it was a Citibank tricycle, would they all circle it and say, no, you can't touch this. This is Citibank property. But it really does just exemplify what it is you're fighting against. You're fighting against the militarized warriors of the kind of fascist state, of the corporate state. It's the fist of the corporate state, because most of the harm done to Americans, done to people in a lot of countries, is done behind closed doors. It's done via economics. It's done by, for example, predatory lending, where you then end up trying to steal, or successfully stealing, millions of homes after the '08 crisis. So you've stolen people's homes, and that's a form of violence. But if the banks do it, it's not called violence. And then if someone stands up and says, I'm not going to allow you to steal my home, I'm going to occupy it or whatever, or they, go into the banks and they're furious, that's called violence. So most of it is behind closed doors, this kind of quiet, discreet, nefarious form of violence. And you rarely see the actual physical kind, but when you do, it's at the hands of the militarized police that come in later in order to shut down protests, almost always peaceful protests. They show up in their militarized gear and say they're there to protect the peace, which of course is laughable. You don't dress like Rambo and act like Gandhi. That's not a thing. So they show up, then things get more violent as they beat people and shoot chemical irritants, as they call them, chemical sprays onto people, which the Geneva Convention says is a war crime if you do it internationally. But as long as you're doing it to your own people, then it's just a fun day in the park. So, yeah, it really is disgusting, and I think it shows you something. It shows you how scared the corporate ruling elite are of protest, are of people standing up and demanding something better than to have 1 out of every 3 black men locked at some point in their lives behind bars. More black people in prison right now than there were slaves when we had slavery. So it really is a disgusting system that has been set up, and when people stand up against it is when the fist of the fascist state is sent out to deal with things.
And let me ask you, because I haven't spoken to you since Bernie's waved the flag. You see all around the country, there's a real mass mobilization of exactly what he was talking about. A multiracial coalition led by young people. I mean, if this amount of young people would have come out to vote during the primary, Bernie Sanders would be the nominee, and it wouldn't have been close. So it looks like it's possible to get young people activated. How does that actually translate to a national progressive candidate defeating the media, defeating the think tanks, defeating all of it, the whole corporate revolving door? Because the young people that are out there on the streets, they are out there in support of Black lives, obviously, but it seems everything Bernie was talking about matches most of the young people that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, part of the key is just to vote in such numbers that you swamp what's stolen. I mean, there will continue to be all these varieties of fraud, but they can't always defeat what the number of people that actually come out. They can purge 10% or sometimes more, but if you defeat them by more than that, then you can have an impact. And I also think that often local elections, it's easier to have an impact. You have fewer people voting. You have fewer corporate interests that have purchased the whole system. So if young people and people of color can get very active in their areas, their cities, you can see large-scale change, and I think that's very important. I mean, part of the reason that what you're talking about, so many people being active, and yet why aren't more true progressives winning elections, it really does come down to money. They've managed to rig the system in favor of those with a lot of money. I think they win over 80% of the time. You have millions of dollars spent on the smallest of races. And so these representatives end up spending 70% of their time trying to raise funds. Well, where do they raise those funds? Mainly from incredibly wealthy donors. And they slowly get captured. So that's how our government has been captured, and we got to take it back.
And lastly, I don't know, call me old-fashioned, but when I hear 46 million people file for unemployment. 30 million lose their employer health care. I think during all of this, stealing from Warren Gunnels, 584 billion is how much billionaires increased their wealth so far during COVID. U.S. households lost 6.5 trillion. I kind of call that a depression. I guess the media doesn't because there's no breadlines yet. But we're a month away from unemployment extensions expiring. We haven't gotten another 1,200 crumb cake, those crumbs. I mean, we're, to me, very close to a possible depression, but it's not really been covered that way.
Yeah, we're on the cusp of a massive economic collapse or at least crisis. You're right. There's millions of people are unemployed right now. That those jobs, most of them are not coming back. And the reason you have seen some collapse of Wall Street, but the reason you haven't seen full-on collapse is because we now live in a plutonomy. Not just a plutocracy, which is ruled by the wealthy, but a plutonomy where most of the impact and the benefits of our economics is by the wealthiest 20% of America. So that means that, whereas even as recently as the 80s and the 70s, the rich had to care a lot about whether the average people had the money to go out and spend and consume and all that stuff. You now have so much of the money and the spending in the top 20% that really they only need to care. I think it's 87% of the wealth. Really, they only need to care about that top 20%. And they don't have to care as much about, the rulers don't have to care as much about whether people have jobs and can support their family and go out and buy extra things. When you live in a plutonomy, all you care about is whether the rich are still spending their money. And so far, the rich are doing okay. They aren't the ones that struggle the quickest. They may struggle later, but not right now. And so that's why the Wall Street isn't, the stock market's not so low that it can see up my skirt. It really should be much lower than it is. I mean, also they're juicing these numbers. They're in terms of unemployment. They act like people who have just dropped out of searching for a job don't count as unemployed, when of course they're very unemployed. They're juicing the poverty numbers as well. So these numbers are, not even showing how bad it is, and we're on the cusp of something horrific. And all I can hope is that. I would never wish that pain on anyone, but all I can hope is that does, provide a fire under people's asses to stand up and, demand something different.
And the good news is, finally, universal basic income has passed, only for corporate America through the Federal Reserve, who has been basically giving suction and life support to all these corporations, who many of them, frankly, don't even need it. So we see the continued. After the 2008 financial crash and now this, the urgent relief is not coming for Main Street, coming for the donors and the corporate elite. Thank you, Lee. Redacted tonight. YouTube. He's not a scary Russian. Don't let them lie to you. And where else can people find you?
Don't believe the warning labels that say I'm a creepy, scary Russian. Also, my website, which has my new book and everything, is leecamp.com.
Great. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks a lot.
So that was Lee Camp of Redacted Tonight. I did notice that my picture was a lot lower than his. Still working out the kinks. If you haven't noticed, if you're an OG status quoer, we're still new into the live interviews. Usually I recorded my interviews and played them during the live stream. So I'll work on the framing so guests don't look like Sasquatches compared to me. Thank you, Torleaf Gunderson, $10. What a pleasant surprise. Two of my favorite truth tellers having a substantive discussion about the real issues that matter. Power to the people. Appreciate it. I totally agree. And that's part of the shame of the media. Somebody like Lee should, I got no problem with RT, but he should have a much bigger platform than he has at RT. But Lee, myself, and others, truth tellers, reporters, journalists that actually show the corporate revolving door, the military-industrial complex, the banks, the lobbyists, the fossil fuckers, big pharma, defense contractors, all of them are shunned. So glad I could have Lee on. If you don't know, in now 2.5 hours, we will have our members call for Status Coup members. So join us tonight, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. You can become a member right now, statuscoup.com/join. That's statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 a month. And the call is through Zoom. So you'll get a link to join us. You don't have to be on video. You can mute your video if you just want to listen in. Last time, I think we had like 100 people, so hopefully we could break that. Tonight, we'll have some fun. Also, I shared it in my earlier live stream, but we are looking for folks to interview. Want to take a road trip next week? Yes, we'll be careful. Definitely must wear masks, social distancing, all of that stuff. But we're looking to take a road trip kind of through the East Coast, Midwest, Southeast, to show the COVID depression that Lee and I were just talking about. So if you have a story, if you're living in this part of America, you got a story about economic devastation, you got a story about your community and corruption, you got a story about just things that are being ignored that you've seen related to COVID, we'd love to interview you. So email us at info@statuscoup.com. That's info@statuscoup.com, and let us know the details, your contact, obviously, and we might be in touch. I did a little something like this in 2016 when I was at the Young Turks, called a Disappearing Middle Class Tour. So I look forward to doing that again, this time talking about the economic pain that COVID is causing, because I think it's kind of out there in data, but has not been out there in people's words and seeing the faces and struggle. So we'd like to do that. Obviously, all of this costs money. So we are very close to $110,000 raised. We are, what is that, $345 away. So hopefully, hey, who knows? Maybe by tonight's member call, we could hit 110,000. So if you got a couple bucks, please drop it in the GoFundMe. If you don't have the money, we totally get it. If you do, keep it coming in the GoFundMe. And I actually I'm trying something different here on YouTube, see if it works. So we got 326 people watching right now. I just published on the channel a video of an interview I did with a organizer from the Autonomous Zone in Seattle, or CHOP as they call it, which is now the mayor, the police are taking back CHOP. But I did an interview anyway to kind of find out what exactly happened at CHOP. What now for the organizers that were at CHOP, the protesters that were at CHOP. So it says no views right now, but when I end this live stream, if all of you rush and click on that video and watch it, I'd love to see the effect of publishing videos right at the end of live streams, because for some reason in YouTube's algorithm, if you get a lot of viewers in the first hour a video is published, it helps in general get it into people's recommended feed. So trying to do different things. So definitely check out that video once I close down this live stream. I interviewed a great organizer from CHOP, so you could check that out. Also, I'm going to be interviewing Andrew Romanoff, the Colorado Senate candidate, in a little bit. So I'll record that, and we'll have it up tomorrow morning. We got the members call tonight, so very, very busy day here in the coup. Thank you for the super chat. Swirly Swirl, $10. Found out that the media company that was rude is actually owned by the guy who thought it was funny to put up a sign at the Indiana-Michigan border inviting Michiganders to come shop and spread COVID. Holy shit. Definitely email me again. I have your original email, Swirly Swirl. Reply to that email. Let me know the name of that media company and the name of that, who found the company, because that's something I definitely would want to look into. She's Swirly Swirl talking about a video, an email she sent us. So we are waiting for your ideas. We want to interview you. So if you live on the East Coast or any of these places, I'm waiting. info@statuscoup.com. We really appreciate it. Let me take a few comments, questions, concerns before I go. Also, for the members call tonight, if you're a patron, same thing. You'll get the link to join us on Zoom. Let's see. I did a live stream earlier on the Jamal Bowman victory, the Mondaire Jones victory. The current status is unknown of Charles Booker, but he was down 4 points with 10% of the precincts reporting. We're not going to know probably for days, if not a week, on Booker versus Amy McGrath. But several progressives did win last night, so it was a good night for progressives. Definitely a good night for progressives. But we got to keep going forward. I also interviewed earlier. We'll cut it out and post it. Just the interview. Jen Perelman, who is running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So check out that interview. I'm also reached out to Cori Bush. Her primary is coming up in Missouri. She ran in 2018. Definitely a leader in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement. I think she has a shot to win in Missouri. So hopefully to interview her soon. So we got a lot of trying to do as many interviews as we can, and like I said, get on the road next week to take a tour of the economic devastation. Because frankly, we're a month out from these unemployment benefits expiring. As we've covered here, a large portion of America has not even gotten the unemployment benefits. So they're expiring, and a large portion of Americans haven't even gotten them. Good reminder, Dave. Text COUP, C-O-U-P, to 370-370 so that you can get text alerts or text message when we're live. We are trying to grow our text list to get around YouTube's suppression. So definitely join our text list by texting COUP to 370-370. Maybe I misunderstood you earlier, but the point that I was trying to make and that I think you were not seeing is that these changes and the process that needs to happen for these things to gain. Okay, don't know what you're talking about, but sounds good. And by the way, a lot of bickering in the chat recent days. Can't we all get along? I don't want division on the left. And for those of you trolls who are causing trouble, if you're going to troll, you need to leave a super chat. You cannot live here for free. What are you, some kind of socialist? Just kidding. Just kidding. Let's see. Your new video is not showing up on my end. What? Shows up for a not. That's the measuring stick that I measure things. My lovely girlfriend. Let's see. It's showing up for me. 35 views. So let me just put the link in right here and click on it. It's my interview with somebody from the Autonomous Zone in Seattle. So, did I miss Lee? You did miss Lee. However, I'm going to post it tomorrow, so you'll be able to watch the whole interview. Oh my God! I might finally make it to a members call. We would love to have you. Try to make it so it's good for people on the East Coast and somewhat good for people on the West Coast. And if you're a member, you could actually watch the members call back if you can't make it live. We post it later, so no problem there. The new video works for me. Good. So I want to see, I'm kind of testing if I publish videos at the end of a live stream, will that help the viewership? We are currently, I think, let me take a look here. Currently, yeah, we're currently 70 subscribers away from 83,000. So if you're not subscribed, smash that subscribe button. I have a meeting with an old friend, but I may just have to invite him to the coup. He's a Dem socialist, I'm pretty sure. Butthole. Invite him to the coup, and then tell him to be a member. That's good friendship, because we need to boost our members. Requirement for trolls to troll via super chat. LOL. Yes. So tell me, folks, what's on your mind before I go? Ooh, Gina Gal, $7. Love to status coup. Much love back to you. The super chats are very much appreciated. By the way, for those of you that don't know, yes, I always look at the GoFundMe number, but we also have 1,600 people who have donated. That's amazing. We've had this GoFundMe going for 2 years, but we basically shut it down for like 6 months to a year because we couldn't go live for 3 months, and then we met our original goal, but we took it out of retirement recently because we've lost a lot of members because of coronavirus. But it's just amazing to me seeing 1,600 donors. I mean, that's way more than a lot of political campaigns get. So the fact that there's such enthusiasm, people willing to put their money, into this really makes a big difference and a big deal to me. I told my mom how much we were making. It's like, That many people donated to your company, Jordan? That's terrific. So, she was in the super chat earlier, and she sent me a screenshot. You should get rid of this person because they said something nasty about Israel. And I told her, Mom, this is a free speech zone. If you don't like it, too bad. You don't have to agree with the person, but we're not purging people because they're not Zionistic for you. You should engage in a civil discussion. What video are you looking at for the thumbs up? Let me put the link in there again. We're trying our best to get this YouTube subscriber base up. So part of that is trying new things. So here's the video you should check out ASAP. It's an interview with somebody from Seattle's autonomous zone, which I'm kind of happy I didn't fly out there because I kind of had a feeling it was going to wrap up soon.
I wonder if it told you not to.
Just BS, Jordan. Go ahead. Kick me out. Cheryl, was that you? Cheryl, I told my mom, no. No. But you don't have to fight with my mother. That's not nice. I told my mother we're not kicking out people if they say something positive or anti-Israel. Too bad. It's not Israel. It's their racist government. Well, I agree with you. I tell my dad all the time. He just doesn't want to hear it. He's one of those God gave us the land kind of zealots, so we do love him anyway. I am trying to get him to come on the show.
No!
I don't know how that would go.
No!
Jordan, can you please try to find my car and dog? I'm getting worried. Dude, where's my car? And your dog is missing? Jesus. It's a double whammy. Good luck. Good luck. Got in an argument with my mom today because she said Nancy Pelosi is doing everything she can do. She doesn't submit helpful bills to vote because of Republicans. Lol, the cognitive dissonance. Clayton, tell your mom that Nancy Pelosi is doing everything she can do to screw the younger generation, to make sure people have to ration insulin, to make sure the planet burns, lickety-split, and to make sure she dies with a velvet gold casket. That's what she's doing. So, anyway, yes, so reminder, members call tonight, 7:30. Not sure Jen's going to be there. I just got a text about a spider bite and severe medical things, so I'll have to get information on that. But I'll be there. Maybe we'll get Colin in there. Maybe I'll ask Tina if she wants to be in there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Will you be there?
If I'm invited.
If you're invited? I don't know. We spend a lot of time together. That's my girlfriend. Thank you, Funk Master Frank's Freestyles, $2. Change your name to Status Coup. That would be Coup. Status Coup? Our name is Status Coup, so why would I change it to what it is? Okay, I got into a heated argument with my mom about John Krasinski, and I argue with her about Pelosi all the time. Who's John Krasinski?
He's from The Office. Hello.
Oh. By the way, have you been watching this whole scandal with 222 the NASCAR driver who had a noose?
Yeah, but it wasn't a news?
Yeah, but he's saying it was a noose.
The white supremacists are making fun of him, calling him Jesse Smollett.
Oh boy. Oh boy. So I might try to get an interview with him. Right now he only wants to talk to Don Lemon, but hopefully I can get an interview with him. So, all right, folks, thanks for watching. I'm about to interview Andrew Romanoff a little bit, so I got to prep for that. I hope to see you on the members call tonight. Right now we are sitting at 1,782. So hopefully we get a mad dash of some new members for the call tonight. Reminder, I just posted this, so go check it out. This is an interview with a member of the autonomous zone. What exactly happened there? What's fact? What's fiction? And what are the protesters going to do from then? Please mic your girlfriend. I'm loving her interjections. I don't know if she's dressed appropriately. I don't know if she's dressed appropriately to be mic'd. That's not the patriarchy. That's just, she's scantily clad at the moment. Shh. We're going to get, by the way, a little, maybe I'll tell the members about this, the war with our downstairs neighbor we're having. I'll tell members about it tonight. We've been getting calls on us for the crime of walking to the kitchen. So that should be a big thing. But stay tuned. Join the members call later tonight. Joining Status Quo real quick, and then I'm going to watch the new video. Awesome, Tarleaf. And you could join Tarleaf just right here, $5 a month. If you got it, that's 16 cents a day. Is real independent journalism worth 16 cents a day? I am Status Quo member, but never get emails regarding Zoom events. Andre, if you or anyone else who are a member have not been getting the emails, email info@statusquo.com. We'll make sure you get the link to join the Zoom call. Okay? Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the members call a little bit later, and feel free to keep those GoFundMe contributions coming. Bye-bye.